4 days until the Orange Bowl between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, 7th seed in the college football playoff, and the number 6 seed Penn State Nittany Lions. Jack and I will be traveling down to Miami for that. Feels like we were just in New Orleans because, well, we just were, but that's how this playoff thing goes, right, Jack? We move along just like the Notre Dame football team moves along. We actually got to see them in action Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, kind of a crossover in our coverage, late morning bleeding into the early afternoon. Saw about 15 minutes of actual periods, saw some stretching, so that all equated to about 25 minutes or so of seeing these guys live on the field in action. The injury updates, Jack, that's where we're going to go first, and I'll toss it to you on the defensive side of the ball, and then I'll talk about the offense.
Yeah, a couple quick injury updates on the defensive side of the ball. Howard Cross predictably had his left ankle heavily wrapped. He participated in individual drills for defensive linemen and kind of the inside run session. I'll get into that after we take care of the injury updates. But he participated. He looked like he was moving fine. They didn't do too much physically strenuous work when we were there. I'm guessing they didn't do much at all in practice, but certainly the part we were there, Cross looked like he was moving fine. Joshua Burnham, the defensive end, he only played 23 snaps against Georgia. He also had a significant wrap. It looked like about the same thing that Cross had on that left ankle of his. He aggravated that ankle. He missed a few games early this season. I forget which ankle it was. It's the left one right now. I forget which one it was earlier this season, so I'll have to go back and check. But Burnham also was participating in everything fully. He was in the spot as a starting Viper, so he should be good to go. Kingston Viliamuasa still has that brace on his right knee, recovering from a sprain suffered in week 13 against Army, and he was participating in individual linebacker drills. So, but when they did the inside run session, he was kind of standing off to the side, standing with Madden Faremo, the early enrollee linebacker, who I believe Viliamuasa has a really good relationship with. So they were kind of talking during that drill, while like Drake Bowen, Jack Kaiser, Jalen Sneed, Jaden Osbury did the linebacker work. So I would expect Viliamuasa's role to be about the same thing as it was this past week against Georgia, where he was part of the third down rush package. So he played 13 snaps, rushed the passer on all of them, but would not expect much off-ball linebacker work from him this week. It'll be all Kaiser, Bowen, Osbury, Sneed.
Talking about significant wraps, bandages, braces, whatever you want to call them. I was watching the offensive line a lot today, and, Rocco Spindler is still out there with that heavy brace tape on his right ankle. Billy Strouth, I believe, is his left ankle. He's been wrapped up for a couple months now, or as you would say, Jack, for a couple years is what it feels like.
Yeah.
But it was really all eyes on Jeremiyah Love today, obviously, with what happened in the Sugar Bowl. Gets injured there. I believe it was in the third quarter, definitely the second half. And we don't see much of him, if any, after that, Jack, if I'm not mistaken. Did he give it a go? I mean, it wasn't much if he did.
No, so Cross came back in after he went down. Love did not, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. Jarian Price basically became RB1 in that game as a result of that, and that's what it was in practice today. We didn't see much, again, but we did see enough of running backs working with quarterbacks to know who's the first team, who's the second team. And Riley Leonard was handing off to Jadarian Price. Steve Angeli was handing off to Jeremiyah Love. That right there tells you kind of where things are at 4 days before the Orange Bowl. And the reason for that is Jeremiyah Love was wearing a heavy brace, which is what I would call it, on his right knee. I mean, this is something that I don't think we've seen him wear this even in we've seen a handful of practices now since he first injured this knee against USC in the regular season finale. That's over a month ago now. We hadn't seen this kind of brace on there. He was fiddling with it all the time during practice. I think the most optimistic thing, if you're a Notre Dame fan, is he never missed one of those second team reps. He was in there, doing the position drills, doing the individual drills, those types of things. But after every single one of those, you could tell like he was walking a little funky, or he was bending down, kind of checking out that brace, checking out that knee. So that's where Jeremiyah Love stands right now. Excuse me. Not much else on the offensive side of the ball injury-wise, because we knew that Cooper Flanagan was going to be out for the rest of the season. Obviously, we didn't see him out there because of his foot injury. But it was just weird, Jack, because of the scout team stuff. Like, you saw a couple scout team tight ends working down on the end of the field that you were at. There was literally only 5 scholarship tight ends where I was looking. You had Kevin Bauman, as seniors, he's a graduate senior, and then you had seniors Mitchell Evans, and you had Davis Sherwood, Eli Raridan, and then the freshman Jack Larson. Obviously, that was it. And Mike Denbrock was down there with those guys the entire time. And the takeaway, the last thing that I'll say about the offense before I kick it to you for maybe some final thoughts about the defense is it's going to be another run heavy. I think Notre Dame thinks they're going in this game winning both sides of the ball in the trenches, because what I saw from the tight ends, offensive line, and even the wide receivers was a lot of blocking. Like those 3 periods that we watched, it was all run block, run block, run block. Let's get this thing going. The wide receivers, I don't know if I've ever seen them as physically engaged in. It was basically like a grappling drill, Jack, where 2 guys come together. It's like a line of scrimmage type drill, push the other one back. I haven't seen these guys go after each other that much, maybe since fall camp, and maybe not even in fall camp. So as much as you don't want to risk putting wear and tear on your body right now, you also want to make sure like this is it. This is do or die. Stay in that mindset of everything's got to be physical. Everything's got to be won up front. I think that's where Notre Dame was at. I saw it with the tight ends. And then Joe Rudolph, the last thing I'll say is, you think Pat Coogan says a lot of F-bombs if you're on Twitter and you see his pregame speeches? Maybe he gets it from his position coach, because I see why the college football playoff wants us to turn the volume down on any B-roll or photos that we're posting on social media, because he was into it as well. My take, Jack, was this was a very locked in, organized session that we saw for about half hour.
Just real quick to add on Love, I would say he looked more limited than when we saw him before the Indiana game. I think the brace he had on was bigger than he had then. I'm interested to see if he has to wear a brace during the game, because after the Indiana game, he said that he chose not to so he could play more free. I think the big tell with if Notre Dame is going to get real Jeremiyah Love is, does he have a brace on during that game? Would think he'll have it on during warmups, but when kickoff happens, that's when you really gotta check. And yeah, obviously he was moving gingerly throughout practice, and there are 5 days until this game.
4 days.
So a couple notes on the defense. The safeties, starting with them, were kind of running like a man-on-man coverage drill against a bunch of walk-on tight ends. For obvious reasons, Penn State has the best tight end in the country in Tyler Warren. And
I don't know if any of those walk-ons at Notre Dame, bless their hearts, are going to replicate Tyler Warren.
Well, it was interesting. So we were wondering who was wearing number 44, and we actually asked Don Schuler about that, and he said that, like, yes, one of them is wearing number 44, but all of them are trying to kind of imitate the parts of Tyler Warren's game. Like, one of them is going to run the vertical routes, one of them is going to run the jet sweeps. Like, Tyler Warren does so much for this offense that it's going to take several scout team guys to try and prepare Notre Dame for him, if that makes sense. I thought that was an interesting note from practice and from talking to Don Schuler afterwards. I thought it was interesting that Madden Faremo is wearing number 0, so he's replicating Penn State linebacker Dom DeLuca, who's a really important player on that defense. The D tackles, it's going to be Cross, Rubio, and Heinisch again. Again, we said this all week. They didn't introduce a 4th member to the rotation when Cross was out against Virginia, Army, and USC. They're not going to do that against Georgia and Penn State. It's about it for the defense. Again, like you said, Tyler, this is a locked-in team. We kind of saw it before the game against Georgia. I think it was very businessman-like. Not a lot of hype, say, for the Pat Coogan speeches and whatnot.
But that Marcus Freeman didn't even know about. So, like, you can tell that's just an offensive line thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're just very, very, very businessman-like, kind of what we've seen from this team in the past few weeks.
Yeah, you make a point about Madden Faremo actually playing a role. I was transcribing James Franklin or reading his transcript, and Penn State has 14 of those guys who are there right now. That sounds a little unheard of. Yeah, but I guess that's the way college football is going. Get them on campus as soon as you can. Blake Hebert is the one guy on offense that I would mention in that category, because this was the first time that the media actually got to see him suited up in pads. We've seen some walkthrough stuff from him, but he was in pads today, and I tell you what, he was wearing number 12, and CJ Carr was also wearing number 12. I mean, CJ Carr has filled out a lot, and he's starting to look more and more like a college quarterback. Blake Hebert already looks like a college quarterback, and it took Carr a little bit to get to that stage. So maybe Notre Dame got a little diamond in the rough. They definitely got a physically college-ready player. He's going to have to learn a lot, obviously, but he looked pretty good out there, is the one thing I would say. Check out this YouTube channel for so many other things leading in to the Orange Bowl. You'll see Jack Sobel's face a few more times, my face, and then obviously Mike Singer Tim Hyde, maybe even Kyle Kelly. I don't know. We're previewing this thing a bunch at Blue and Gold's YouTube channel. So give us a like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.